Hey everybody, John from JonLoomer.com here and Jon Loomer Digital on Facebook. My first ever video blog or vlog or vlog or whatever it is the cool kids are calling it. Pretty sure it's not any of those three things. When I put out my New Year's resolutions, one of the things I really want to do this year was to do more video. And this is going to be one of those, one of the ways I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a weekly video blog. Today's Friday. I don't think I'll normally do it on Friday. I just want to make sure I get this out now. I plan on doing it on either Tuesday or Thursday. Not really clear yet. Stay tuned on that. However, so the format of this is going to be pretty simple. On the day or the night before of my video blog, I'm going to put out a question. And so, for example, today I did this. Ask me anything. I'll answer as many questions as I can on my video blog. Thanks. This is 4 hours ago. Finally figuring this out. I got a bunch of great questions, and the thing is, what I'm going to do, I also have a podcast that runs on Sundays, so I am going, for some of these that I can't get to, I'm going to try to get to more of these on my podcast, all right? So there's some terrific questions this week. The first one I'm going to get to, Jeff, it's kind of a softball question, but I feel like it's a really good intro into what I'm all about, and kind of give you background on my experience with Facebook. He asks, what got you into digital marketing? Great question, Jeff. So here's the thing. I am not a classically trained marketer by any stretch of the imagination. I did not go to school for marketing. I went to school, my major was philosophy, which means I really didn't go to school for anything. And once I graduated, my first real job was in something I hated. And this is going to be a long story and try to keep it short, but it's a fun story. It was in the insurance world. Now, I was an underwriter, which makes some sense since I'm a big stats and numbers guy, but come on, it's insurance. I hated it. So I was a horrible employee, and I was a horrible employee from the beginning, because I want to do other things. And this started like 13 years ago, 99. And, oh God, I'm old. So anyway, I was doing, one of the things that I was passionate about at the time was fantasy sports. So you may recall 99, 2000, internet really starting to explode at that point. And one of my favorite websites was a fantasy sports site called Roto World, which is now part of NBC. And I reached out to them to write for them. So I started writing for them, which led to me eventually starting my own website. And I say my own website, like the standards we have for our own websites is completely different. I had a lot of help with that too. But it was pretty cool, and I learned a lot from it, and my audience grew. But it led to me eventually getting a job, getting out of insurance, and getting a job with the National Basketball Association to oversee their fantasy games. It's just absolutely incredible opportunity. And I did that for 3 seasons. Picked up my family, moved to New Jersey, which, come on, it's New Jersey. So that's why we only did it for 3 seasons. But here's the thing. When I took that job, I did a whole bunch of stuff I'd never done before. Like, this is an insurance guy taking over fantasy games for the NBA and overseeing everything associated with it. So that was marketing, content, product, magazine, everything you can imagine. All right. And that included in 2007 when the NBA partnered with Facebook to create an application. Back when you couldn't create your own, you had to partner with Facebook. And back when I was actually one of the first admins of the first Facebook group before you could have a Facebook page. We're talking almost 6 years ago. It's about 6 years ago now. Insane. So that's why I'm comfortable with Facebook, because I've been using it for business purposes for so long. That eventually, I eventually left. And my first job after the MBA was the American Cancer Society. It was funny, when that job opening came up, someone showed it to me, and she said, you should apply for this. It was VP of Strategic Marketing. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm qualified. I'm not a marketer. I didn't consider myself a marketer, but everything I'd been doing up until then with the MBA really was marketing. So I did that for 2.5 years, was laid off, in August of 2011, which I think was a blessing in disguise because it led me to where I am today. And that's where I am. And again, I've ended up focusing mainly on Facebook marketing. I do a little bit of everything. But that is where I'm most comfortable, really dating back to my history with the NBA. Thank you, Jeff, for the great question. All right, next, Carrie. Carrie's question: I'm interested in learning more about ways to grow connection across platforms. What do you do differently from one to the next? How do you differentiate the content that goes to your various outlets? That is a really good question. Here's the thing. In the beginning, when I started my business, I use that word loosely, as it was more just my website. I was trying to figure out what I was all about. I was trying to be great at everything. I was trying to be your digital marketer who can help you with Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, and Google+, essentially. And anything in between, including blogging, creating websites, etc. And when you do that, you really water yourself down. You're an expert of nothing, and you drive yourself crazy, because to be truly successful in all of those, you need a ton of time that I did not have. And so I made the shift to focus being great in Facebook, being adequate at everything else. So I think you need to have a presence. Make sure you reserve your name, whatever your brand is in each of those areas. So there's something there that people can follow, and it's always there in case you need it. So if Facebook blows up one day and you want to start focusing on Twitter or something else, you can do that because you've already established that presence elsewhere, even if it wasn't great before. So the way I do it, again, most of my time is dedicated to Facebook. I admittedly I don't do a great job in Twitter. LinkedIn's another one. LinkedIn, I'm awful on LinkedIn because I don't have the time. And Google+. But this is how I do it. All right. Every day when I publish a new blog post, I buffer it. So it goes into Twitter. I'll buffer it 4 times. It goes into Twitter 4 times throughout the day. I use different hashtags and whatnot to try to reach different people. As I'm reading content throughout the day, and I find stuff I really like it may appear that sometimes I'm just using an RSS feed to send in content. That's not the case. I'm looking for great content throughout the day, and as I find it, I'll use the Hootsuite Hootlet to publish that throughout the day. And then I also have a plugin on WordPress called Tweet Old Post, which pulls old posts dating back the last 150 days and tweets those throughout the day. I believe it's like a 4-hour window that publishes those. Reason I use 3 different things is so that they all overlap, as opposed to posting. Like if I use Buffer for both my content and content of others, it would then publish my content and then publish the content. I want it all to mesh, right? So my use of Twitter, and then I don't follow my feed, admittedly. I just don't have time. So when people comment and at me, I will respond. So that's my use of Twitter. Again, it's if I want to be the Twitter guy, I would do it a whole lot differently. I don't follow everybody back. If I look at your stuff and I think you're a real person instead of someone who follows 100,000 people, I will follow you. That's it. Google Plus is just part of my sharing process every day. Just share directly from my post. Occasionally when people reply, I'll reply. I don't do a lot with Google Plus. I found Pinterest. What I used to do every day is share infographics that I found really interesting. I'd share it to Pinterest. I don't know what the deal is, but it seems like people have really cooled on creating infographics, because there was a big influx of awesome infographics out there. Now it seems like there's not really anything. And so what I've found is I'm just sharing my own graphics, because I usually create an infographic, like a list. And it's kind of lame, right? Just sharing. But again, I don't have time to follow my feed and everything on Pinterest. I just throw it out there. If it spreads, it spreads. And then YouTube is this is kind of my focus. So my focus is really going to my website, Facebook, my email list, YouTube. Those are kind of my priorities. Everything else, I throw my stuff out there, but I can't spend too much time on it. And otherwise, I make sure that people are able to share my stuff in those various outlets. I use DigDig, the plugin, WordPress plugin on my site. Long answer. Hope that helps. Greg Welch. He has a great question here. What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? I really have to think about this one. To give you a really good answer, Greg, it depends. I mean, is it African or is it European? And without me knowing that, I can't really answer your question. So please, if you could, send me more details through Facebook, or send me an email, and I'll try to answer it in the next video blog. All right. Next question, Charlene. What is the first thing you would add to this page to improve it? You always provide so much info. Thank you, Charlene, which is great, but I don't know where to start. It's so overwhelming. Thank you. All right, so let's look at Charlene's page. Stitching time. So a couple things. I'm not going to go through everything in your page. I've got a service called Facebook Page Review. Highly recommend you check out. There are basically 3 different levels you can look at. I can just give you a quick 10-minute review via video. I could do something much, much more in depth. But go to that link here. Check it out. So that's the first thing. Second thing is I've got a checklist out there. Absolutely look at. That's, I believe, 56 things you should look at for 2013 with your Facebook page. A link for that is here. All right. And finally, let me just give you a couple of very top level suggestions. You need a custom URL, a custom username for your page, because right now it's just facebook.com/pages/stitchintime/ bunch of numbers. And if you want to create a sign, because this is a location, you've got a place. If you want to create a sign that says, hey, make sure you like our page, how are you going to recommend that? You're going to put that URL there? It's silly. No one's going to write that down. So you need to just do facebook.com/stitchintime or whatever's available. You can do that within your admin panel. There's an option to claim a username. So absolutely do that. And the other thing is, I do like the image, your cover photo, but I would make, because it looks like it's been scaled and blown up, I would do something that is higher quality, okay? And if you could, if you look at my cover photo, and this doesn't mean you have to do it, but I'd like to see something that explains what you're all about. Like, who are you? What makes you unique? Those are 2 just very top level things I'd look at. Oh, and one other third thing I would look at to help. So when I run these reviews, there are basically 6 main things that I look at. And I wrote a blog post about that as well. And there's a link for that down below. So check that out. So good question. All right, next up, Carrie. What is the ideal frequency of Facebook CPM ads? Good question, Carrie. So you may know that I typically use CPM as opposed to CPC with my Facebook ads. Now, my answer isn't black and white. And the reason is I feel like it really depends. If you're doing a newsfeed ad, for example, if you're doing a promoted post, first of all, I only target fans. I don't target friends of fans. Second, I don't look at a promoted post as an ad. The purpose of promoting my post is to make sure everybody sees it. Everybody who is my fan sees the content that I published. So I don't want them to see it 10 times. I don't want them to see it 5 times. If you when you go through your options, typically if you start at a very low option, like the lowest option Facebook gives you for budget, start with that. Almost always you're only going to hit people once, and that's what I prefer to do. If you start going up, then you'll start noticing that Facebook's going to hit them more times and more times and more times to fill that budget. So what I would do is monitor how much you're spending and what your frequency is, and try to keep that at 1. Okay, so that's for newsfeed ads. For the other stuff though, sidebar, honestly, I don't care. You'll look at it to determine when it's no longer successful, monitor it to determine if there's a point when your clicks are going down. But it's going to depend. There's no ideal number. But even me, even if you're not getting any clicks, it's kind of like watching TV ads, right? If you see it over and over and over and over and over, it might be annoying, but it's going to stick with you. So if you see my face in the right sidebar and you never click on it, but you see me over and over and over and over, you're going to start recognizing me. So I'm going to say there's no ideal number there. That said, you should monitor it, and if your clicks completely fall off the map, then you move on. All right. So good questions, Carrie. Next up, last question, Mike. How should small business owners and network managers design their Facebook page for optimizing Facebook nearby? Great question. Big new feature that most people don't know about. Actually, a couple things here. I went to a restaurant last night with my family, and normally I would check in. And this isn't necessarily the way you would typically use nearby, because usually you'd use it for discovery. But so what I did is I went through nearby. It was one of the first times I've actually used it for this purpose. Went in nearby, found, and this is within my iPhone app, so it's within that side navigation. One of the options will be nearby, and it'll pull up all the businesses close to you. And I found where I was, that restaurant, and I saw the ratings that it's received, the recommendations, and it gave me the ability to check in. So I thought it was really cool. I think it's going to be big. I think Facebook needs to make it more prominent. Instead of having check-in in the main navigation, to add nearby, and then check in from there. But I think it's going to be pretty cool. And so I'm not sure if this is necessarily a question, but these are my recommendations. First of all, use nearby. Make sure your business shows up. All right. What shows up there is going to be customized somewhat to someone's activity, to what they're doing, whether they like a page, whether they've rated a page, whether their friends have liked a page, checked in, or rated a page. Business. All right. That said, you should make sure you show up. If you don't, it's because you have not connected your page to a place. So that's the first thing you need to do. Make sure you've connected your page to a place. And to do that, you go into your admin panel. Make sure you set a physical address, and Facebook will ask you if you want to add the map to your timeline. Check that box that you do. All right, and then it'll connect your page to a place. It's possible, though, those options aren't going to come up for you, and that's going to depend on the way you classify your business. Make sure then that you go through the different classifications, and whether it's a local business or something like that, you classify it appropriately. Do that. If you've got a page, then a classification that lays out, your address and your phone number and your hours of operation, make sure that those are accurate, okay? Because that's going to show up in nearby. And finally, you're going to want to make sure there are positive recommendations in there. And so this is something you don't necessarily beg for and say, hey, reach out to your fans, make sure you give us a recommendation. What I would do is, I assume you have signage at your restaurant, your store, whatever it is, that says like us on Facebook, check in on Facebook. Now you want to make sure is give us a recommendation or a rating on Facebook. I mean, there are a bunch of different things. Maybe you do this like it'd be a sign. Connect with us on Facebook, and then you have kind of like bullets, like our page, check in, rate our business, give us a recommendation. I don't know, just kind of thinking out loud. So these are the things you want to start building up that social proof. Whew. So that's it. I kind of went over time what I was hoping for, but great questions this week. Again, make sure you check in next week. Make sure you subscribe on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jon Loomer. And I'm going to make video a much bigger part of my content in 2013. If you have any questions, make sure you like my Facebook page, facebook.com/Jon Loomer Digital. Follow closely, as I will be throwing out that question once a week. Ask me anything for my video blog. Thanks again. Have a great weekend.